I've had good luck with documents. When I was working on my first book, The Army of Flanders and the Spanish Road, I remember realizing that something was missing. Geoffrey Elton had just published The Practice of History, in which he said that every historian needed a core source. You need a core source. And I got a lot of good sources, but there was something missing. There was something that wasn't there. And one of the things I learned later as a historian is that knowing what isn't there is just as important as knowing what is. And I was working my way through the archives up the Spanish Road and down the Spanish Road, and I came close to a place called Grenoble, and I knew that a very eminent French historian of Spain called Henri Lapeyre worked there. And so I asked for an audience. I've always believed in touching the hems of robes of great historians. And so I went to see Lapeyre, and at the end of our very nice meeting, I said to him, look, I have a problem. I'm sure I'm missing something in this is after the thesis when I'm trying to work it up into a book. And I said, I've written the thesis. I know I'm missing something. And I said, there has to be some archive of the army itself, and I'm not finding it. Where would you look if you were me? He looked at me. Well, I don't know, but I do know there's a series in Simancas, which is called Contaduría Mayor de Cuentas, that's to say the audit office of the Spanish state. And he said there's 100 volumes at the beginning of that series, and nobody knows what they are. No one has been able to identify them. They're just called cuentas, accounts. Why don't you spend 3 days looking at them? And maybe that's what you're looking for. And if you've wasted 3 days, so what? You're young, it doesn't matter to you. Okay, fair enough. So when I went back to Simancas, I spent the 3 days, and that was it. He was absolutely right. It was just one of those lucky things. I'd asked the question, he gave me a suggestion, and it happened to prove right. And much the same thing happened now, as I near the end of my career. I got a message from the Hispanic Society of America that they had a trove of Philip II documents, and they couldn't identify them, and could I perhaps stop by and take a look? And so I went by and I looked at them. At that point, there were about 100 Philip II holograph letters. And I said, well, what else have you got? And they said, oh, various families, you know, the Rickersens family, the Zuniga family, the Dukes of Sessa. Can't work out why they're all together. And I said, well, I can. They are definitely part of an archive broken up and sold in the 1870s, which included all the names you've just given me. And so this must be a part of the archive which somehow found its way to you. How did that happen? And they said, oh, well, we can answer that. Our founder, Archer Milton Huntington, went to Spain in 1905 and bought a library, an entire library. And when it arrived here in New York, there were 32 boxes of documents that Huntington had not anticipated. So he just put them in the vault. And when he died in the 50s, they came to us, but we don't have time to look at 3,000 documents. That's why we thought you could help us. So they got a grant from the Mellon Foundation, and with a couple of my former advisees, we went through every one of those 3,000 documents, and we sorted them, we put them, we gave it. So the only time I've been an archivist in my life, it's a lot of fun. It was like going back to being a grad student. You know, I turned up for work at 8:30, at 4:30 the doors closed, that was the end of the day. It's great. But at the end of 2 months, we catalogued every document, and I had made a note of the ones that seemed to me really interesting. Of the 3,000, a third were estate papers, you know, interesting perhaps, but not great. 1,000 were interesting, but basically told us things we already knew in a different form, but the other 1,000 were totally new. And I thought, aha, well, maybe this could make the basis of a new biography of Philip II. And so Imprudent King, a new biography of Philip II, comes out in 2014.